Okay, let's get going here. Good afternoon, good morning, boys and girls, moms and dads, students and parents. Welcome to our community of learning. Today, we have students from Florida and Colorado, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, all over the United States. Welcome to our program this afternoon. So we're going to be connecting with Actors Company and specifically with the Diamond Family Circus. So you guys get ready to go under the big top. And if you would please tell us where you're from in the Q&A. Welcome, California. I'm Miss Jan with the Center for Interactive Learning and Collaboration. I'm going to be your moderator today. So I'll be watching that Q&A box if you have questions or comments for Marci and Marisa. So we are connecting to the Diamond Family Circus, in particular, Miss Marci and Miss Marisa. So ladies, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, we are.
Yay! Turn your camera on and go right ahead.
Hello, I'm Marci Diamond.
I'm Marisa Diamond, and we are
Diamond Family Circus. We actually do real circus. We've worked in big top circuses under the tent, and we've worked on stages and theaters all around the world. But today, we're coming to you from our living room. So this is Living Room Circus with Diamond Family Circus, and we are so happy that you are here to do some circus with us today. We saw that somebody's joining us from Sarasota, Florida, and we actually were in Sarasota doing circus with Pal Sailor Circus not too long ago.
It has a different name now.
It does have a different name now, but there's circus all over the world. And we'll talk a little bit about that while we're doing some circus. So the first thing that we always do is make sure that we're safe when we're doing circus so that we can take the risks we need to take. So check out the space you're in. I'm going to look around and see if you have room to move. If you're in a chair, do you have room to move your arms? If you can move your arms without hitting anything? If you are standing up on your feet, do you have room to move your body a little bit? You don't need a ton of room. You can see our living room circus is pretty small right now, and that's okay. So wherever you are, if you're able to participate with us, that would be awesome. And if you just want to watch and learn, that's okay too.
And also, if you are able to participate in some ways, but not other ways, that's totally great also. For example, I'm in a sling right now. I don't know if you can tell, but my arm is in a sling. So I'm not going to be able to do everything that Marci does, but that doesn't mean that I have to just sit down and watch everything. There are a bunch of things that I can still do.
And Marisa's getting better, so she'll be out of that sling pretty soon. But yeah, if you just have one hand, you can juggle with one hand with us, and Marisa will show you how to do that. But before we do, we want to warm up our bodies a little bit, get our bodies and our brains ready to go. If you have questions along the way, please put them in the chat, and we will pause at some point during this program and ask Ms. Jan, or maybe I'll go up and read your questions. So you can ask any questions you like. All right, awesome. So we're going to start by just bouncing, if you can, shaking your hands a little bit. And then we're going to pretend we're climbing a great big cliff. So reach up, and if you can bring your knee up, we're going to reach up our hands and our knees. So we're going to try to use our hands for juggling and our legs for some of our other activities. So while you're doing that with Marisa, I'm going to grab our first activity. And I think that Ms. Jan may have sent to you some of the materials that could be helpful today. You don't have to have them because you can use your hands and mime or just make the motions of what we're doing. Miming is actually part of circus. And it's a really important skill to be able to act out if you've ever played charades or something like that.
And almost all the materials that we'll be using today are things that you can find around your house. And they will all be returned to their original state. Nothing will be destroyed. You can just use it now and then reuse it later.
And that was our dog Ghost. He's our circus dog. He's still learning. So he's not going to do any tricks for us today, but he's still learning.
Okay, Marci is going to show you our first activity.
So if you have your grocery bags, we use reusable grocery bags. We try to protect the environment that way, but we still have some of these bags that are less reusable unless you're doing circus with them. We like to use these bags as juggling scarves. So if you happen to have these bags that are clean, you can hold one in a duck hand. This is my duck hand right here, quack, quack. And I'm gonna put that right here and hold my bag upside down. Oh, and we are joined by our other circus pet. This is Opal the cat. They wanted to come play too, and that's okay. So hold your duck bag right here, and we're gonna throw it up in the air like it's making a rainbow. And then my other duck hand is gonna catch it. These are hungry ducks, so they're kind of feeding like they would be eating in a lake, downward. I'm gonna throw this one up like a rainbow, wait for it to float and catch it down. See if you can try that. It's also possible to do this with a small square of fabric. You have a scarf that floats, that would work too.
And you can do this one-handed. So instead of going from one hand to the other, you can just go up and down, and that is totally a legitimate option as well.
If you've got your two duck beaks today, like I do, you can hold one bag in each hand, and we're gonna have our hands take turns, right? We like to take turns. So our hands are gonna take turns throwing up into that rainbow shape. I usually write with this hand, so I'm actually gonna start with the hand I don't usually write with, just so that it gets a little extra attention. So I'm gonna use the hand I don't write with, throw up, and then I'm gonna throw up with the other hand. First time, you don't even have to catch them. So my hands take turns, 1, 2, and you don't even have to worry about catching it the first time. Let's try it again. This time I'm gonna try to catch one. See if you can do that. Up, up, catch either one. And if you can do that, you can probably catch each of them, again, taking turns. Up, up, down, down. Try it again. Awesome. All right. Usually, we take a lot longer to teach juggling because it can be really hard to move from 2 to 3, but I want to show you how you will move from 2 to 3 if you want to try that either now or later. And we want to make sure that you have 2 separate duck bills. I'm coming close to the camera so you can see that I have 2 bags in one hand with 2 separate, I'm holding them separately in 2 separate duck bills. Then I've got another one over here. Can you guess which one I have to throw first? If you said one of the ones in the hand that has 2, that's right. So we're going to throw the front bag of the hand that has 2 first, and then my hands are going to take times throwing up. 1, 2, 3. I'm just trying to catch the last one. Once you get really good at that, try it. 1, 2, 3, catch the last one. You can start trying to catch more than just one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I've done this for a while. You might not get 10 the first try, but if you keep practicing, you'll probably get better at this. Marisa likes to say, if you practice 5 minutes most days, you're going to be so much better at the end of the week than you were at the beginning of the week. So that's a good way to learn juggling, is to just practice. It's also something that's safe to learn online like this. Some of the things we do in circus, like trapeze, we can't really teach online because it's not safe, but there's so many things you can do right in your own living room. So That's one kind of juggling. The other kind of juggling we're going to do today is with balls. Does not have to be a fancy juggling ball.
Like I'll get a clementine.
Marisa's going to get clementines, the little things that look like oranges. If you're allowed to use those can work. Dryer balls, even a balled up sock that's kind of folded up into itself. You can use lots of things to be balls. So we start just like with the bags, practicing throwing and catching, right? With one hand. What's different with the balls is we're going to have our palms facing up and not down like the duckbills. So let's try throwing in the same hand and catching it. Now we're going to throw up like we did with the bags and let the ball use gravity to fall down into the other hand. So we're going to throw up and then wait for it over here and see if we can catch it. And if you don't catch it the first time, that's fine. A lot of people take many, many tries. They drop it. The best jugglers in the world drop because maybe they can already juggle 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 balls at a time. That's true. And now they want to try to juggle 9.
Or do a crazy pattern with 5.
And so while they're learning that, they're dropping a lot. And even when they're performing, they sometimes drop and they just pick it up and keep going. So if you drop the ball, you are like the best juggler in the world. So if you can throw it up and make that rainbow and wait for it to come down to your clouds at the bottom of the rainbow, that's your hands. You can keep practicing one, but if you're catching it regularly, you can take a second one. Now, Marisa is going to show how to do that with one hand after she sneezes. Okay. And I will show how to do it with 2 hands. Go ahead.
So 2 in 1 hand is actually, I think, a little bit more difficult than 2 with 2 hands. So I will teach you how to do it. But then if you feel like what Marci teaches you afterwards is so much easier, that's normal and that is okay. And if you think that what I teach you is so much easier,
Do that.
that's okay too. You can practice either one. They are both real kinds of juggling. So to do 2 in 1 hand, I start with, just like Marci did with the bags as duck beaks, I start with one in front of the other. I put them in 2 hands, in 1 hand. And I'm going to throw, because for me, I feel like my pointer finger and my thumb have the most amount of control. And I use my middle finger too. So I cradle that front ball between my middle finger, my pointer finger, and my thumb. So that feels like it has a lot of control. So I'm going to throw that one first. And I'm going to throw it not just up. I'm going to try to do a little bit of an oval shape going like this. So it's going to go in towards my body and then I'm going to catch it a little outside of my body. I think. We'll try. Oh, other way. Out to the body, then to the inside.
It's still an oval.
You can do both ways. There we go. That's what I said I was going to do. So I dropped 2. But in order to do 2 in 1 hand, you do have to make a little bit of an oval or a circle shape, because if you throw straight up and down, they're going to land on top of each other. So one more time, I'm going to go in a circle and I drop. This is also my non-dominant hand. It is not the hand I write with. So for me, this is a really good exercise for my brain as well as my muscles and my hands.
Yep. So if you have 2 hands, you're going to do up, up. You want your hands to stay down low. Like I said, same as with 1. Try to keep your hands down low and be patient. Let gravity do its job and bring the ball down to your hands. Try not to reach up and grab for the ball. If you just keep your hands down here, it'll give you more time to do your throws and catches. Let gravity do its job. All right, so the balls will make kind of an X in the air, but your hands don't cross. Your hands do not make an X. Your hands stay on their own side of your body, right? So if I have a line right down the middle, my hands are going to stay on their own side of that line. So this is what it looks like when our hands take turns and both hands are going to throw up. I'm going to start with my non-dominant hand too, the one I don't usually write with. It's going to go up, up. It dropped on purpose that time. So let's try catching one. Up, up. That worked. And then you can try catching two. Up, up. Oops. Up, up. Now, if I see anybody going, we call this a zip from hand to hand, that's not throwing up. And it makes it a lot harder to get to 3 balls. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Some people do juggle in a circle with 3 balls or more, but it's much harder than when we throw up each time. So if you find yourself handing one of the balls over, go back to not catching and really focus on throwing up with each hand, one hand at a time. Are there any questions, Marisa? She can see the chat, I think.
I can see the chat. It looks like Jan had maybe a question from somebody.
Yeah. So Debbie wants to know how you hurt your hand.
Oh, okay. So it's not actually very fun. Sometimes people are like, I was doing this crazy trick and I injured myself. For me, it was just, I've been doing circus and gymnastics for 21 years of my life, which is almost my entire life. So after doing it for 21 years, my shoulder, it's actually my shoulder that's injured. My shoulder just kind of got some injuries from wear and tear from using it so much. Because what I do, like what we both do a lot of, is hanging by our arms from a bar. And we know how to do it safely. We always make sure that we're using our muscles to keep our bodies protected. But sometimes just after a really long time, our bodies start saying,
ow.
Ow. Yeah. So I got it fixed. And it should be better pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually, the sling is just for safety now. I'm allowed to have it down, but not just.
That's a great question. And sometimes we do get hurt, but we really try to be as safe as possible and take good care of our bodies. And that actually includes eating really nutritious food and drinking a lot of water, trying to sleep at night. It's hard sometimes.
And we also are really good about listening to our own bodies. So that's part of why I went ahead and I got the shoulder surgery that I needed, because I listened to my body and it was saying, ow, every time I went to work out, not just sometimes. And so at that point I was like,
let's fix it.
I can fix that.
She's very lucky that she got to fix it. So if you want to go to 3 balls, again, it usually takes a little more time. I don't know if anybody out there is already juggling 3 balls, which is amazing. But you can start with the front ball of the hand that has 2. So this red one is going to go first, then the red one in the other hand, then the black one, because my hands need to take turns. And I just want to throw up and catch the last one. Up, 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 catch.
Just like she did with 2 balls, right? When she started the 2 balls, there were no catches, and then she caught the second ball.
So if you can try that, if you're still working on 1 ball and learning how to catch it with 1 hand, that's where you're starting from. Everybody's starting from a different place, and you're going to make improvements for where you start today. And if you practice, where you'll get tomorrow. So I'm going to show one more where you actually can catch them after a whole bunch of practice. So,
and if that is confusing, because once you add that 3rd ball in, that pattern, which is the order that Marci is throwing the balls and the way she's throwing them up, that can get really confusing. So we're going to show you monkey juggling really quickly, which is to help your brain understand the order that the balls have to get thrown in the air, or whatever you're using. If it's a clementine, that's cool too. So for monkey juggling, Marci is going to start with a ball under each armpit and then the 3rd one in 1 hand. She's going to fill the empty spot, which is her hand right now. And that's all she's going to do over and over and over again. She's going to fill the empty spot, which changes, right? So right now it's her armpit, now it's her hand. Armpit, hand, armpit, hand. And this is called monkey juggling because you kind of look like a monkey while you're doing it. But other than that, it's just juggling.
It's okay. So that pattern that we were doing upright this way, I love dropping so that you can feel good about dropping too. It's the only way to learn. That pattern
Is the exact same.
it's the same as the monkey juggling, which is also the same as braiding hair. If you know how to braid hair, you're moving from one side into the middle, from the other side into the middle, just over and over again. So it's kind of cool. If you know how to braid hair, maybe you'll be good at juggling with some practice. All right, so that's our juggling lesson. Does anybody have questions before we move on?
And that was really, really quick. I know Marci said it, but that was like hyper speed juggling 101. Most people don't get successful with juggling 3 balls, at least for a few weeks. Some people get it the first time, but for most people, it takes a good amount of practice before you're successful with it. So don't feel like I couldn't do it today. That's not okay. It's totally okay.
If it is something that you're good at, there are other things you can juggle. You can juggle rings and clubs, and then so there's always something new to learn, and it's so much fun. You're like, you never get to a point with juggling where you're like, I know it all, ever. You always have something new to learn, and that's part of the fun of it. So, Jan, was there a question?
How long did it take for both of you to learn juggling?
Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to answer?
You can answer.
So juggling is definitely, I'm going to be honest, juggling is not my favorite circus discipline. So I didn't practice juggling for a long time. Like, I learned how to do it. I had the instruction. So it took me 4 years to learn how to juggle 3 balls, but I don't want that to discourage you, because I practiced my juggling probably like for 1 week each year. That's not enough.
Yeah.
However, when I wanted to learn, so Marci was talking about different kinds of objects you can juggle. When I wanted to learn how to juggle clubs, which look kind of like a bowling pin, but they're called juggling clubs, that only took me 2 months, because I wanted it so bad. I practiced it pretty much every day, and that only took me 2 months. So,
and she's pretty good at the clubs now when she has both hands available. So maybe we can come back for another visit sometime and you can see the clubs.
And Marci's juggling.
My juggling is not as good as Marisa's, because I don't practice it very often. I practice other circus things much more often, things like contortion and acrobatics. And when I can go to a circus studio, when it's safe to do that, then I do most of my practice up in the air, on the aerial hoop and the trapeze and the aerial silks or tissue. Some people call it fabric. So that's what I spend most of my time on, so I get better at that.
But as coaches, I have seen people who can juggle if they practice every day for like 20 minutes. I have seen my students get juggling 3 balls in like a week and a half. So it's really, and it's different for everybody.
It's true.
Some people are better at juggling. Some people are better at kind of more of the gymnastics type stuff. And that's part of what we love so much about circus.
And clowning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's any clowns out there, but I think we should try one of our clowning activities. So some of our clowns that we work with are the most acrobatic and athletic people that we know. And some use their faces more than anything, and they're not the super acrobatic types. So there's space for everyone in the circus, as Marisa was saying, to find something that you enjoy, that you can be good at. And if it's not circus, I bet you can find something else that you enjoy and that you're going to get good at with practice.
Well, and even if you don't enjoy being in front of the curtain, there are so many roles in the circus that you don't necessarily see during the show. But the person who makes the costumes, you don't see them, but the costumes in circus are sometimes so glamorous and one of like the most amazing things you've ever seen.
So maybe you're good at sewing and you can be the costumer.
Right.
All right, so our clowning bit that we're going to do is called 1, 2, 3. Marisa's going to explain it, and then we will show you, and we're hoping that you will join us for this clowning exercise if you like.
So I think we're going to actually ask you to be the number 3, which you will learn what that means. But behind your computer screens, you can all be number 3 after I've explained the gag, as we call it in circus. So the number 1 clown is generally the boss clown, the one that's in charge, usually a little bit meaner or just bossy. The number 2 clown, when there are 3 people, the number 2 clown is the one who wants to impress the boss, right? And the number 3 clown might want to impress the boss, but for whatever reason is not able to impress the boss. So the number 3, is there a good example they might know as a number 3 or a low status clown?
Marisa just used a term called status. So the high status clown is the number 1 boss clown who's like maybe a king or
a popular girl at school.
That's the kind of character we're talking about. So anyway, let's just try it. And
so the number 1, who I am going to be today, is going to make a movement, and I can do a sound and a movement, just a sound or just a movement. I'm going to do both. The number 2, because they want to impress the number 1, they are going to do exactly what the number 1 does, pretty much in the same way. Now the number 3, who cannot for whatever reason impress the number 1 or do what the number 1 is asking them to do. But really wants to. Number 3 gets to do something a little bit different than what number 1 did. So for example, if I snap my fingers as the number 1, so that's my movement. Number 2 snaps their fingers. And now you all get to try being number 3. So maybe
I'm going to pretend I'm number 3 for this finger snapping.
So maybe number 3 can't snap. Or maybe number 3 snaps in their face and surprises themselves. So it's up to you. It doesn't have to be either of the things that I just said. But let's try that one more time. Marci will be number 1 this time. I will be number 2, and then we will give you a moment to be the number 3. So 1. Ta-da!
Oh, she can't clap.
Ta-da!
Maybe she should be the number 3. I'll do a different one.
Try again. Ta-da! Ta-da! Your turn.
Mess it up terribly or exaggerate it.
I'm sure it went great. Yeah.
Miss Janet just is kind of clueless. That's exactly. Right. That's exactly right.
That was perfect.
So I wish we could see everybody's number 3 clown. Let's try one more. And yeah, make it as big, as silly, as wrong as you want, as long as it's safe in your space.
So I'll be number 1 again, just so she doesn't do something I can't do again. Okay. Your turn. Great.
Nice job.
That's a game you can, if you enjoyed that and you think that's fun, you can take that game to family night. Or I know some of you are in school, I think, in person maybe, or not in person. But if you have friends you can do that with, it's really fun. Even just with family. This is my family and we play this game. So
and you can even play this by yourself, especially if you have a mirror. It's really fun to try
to be all 3 roles at once.
3 roles, 1, 2, 3, and just use your mirror for that. It's the way some of the greatest clowns and physical comedians and comics have practiced. Just like we practice juggling, you can practice your clowning even when you're by yourself.
And this can also be done as 1, 2. We use 1, 2, 3 because 3 is the magic number when it comes to comedy and clowning. We don't have time to totally go into that, but little nugget of knowledge is that 3 is the magic number when it comes to comedy and clowning.
So, any questions about clowning? Because we're going to also give you a sample, a little bit of contortion, just a little bit. Yeah.
No questions, but I'm excited to see contortions.
Oh, awesome.
I'm going to let Marci take the reins for this one just because I can't do everything today.
Although I think Marisa might be able to help me with some partner acrobatics too, which is the kind of thing, some of it you can do by yourself. And some of it, if you have another person with you who is willing and eager to participate, if you have more than one person in the room with you, then you can try, if you both want to, try some of this partner acrobatics that we're going to show you in just a minute. But I'll show you the solo parts first. So I like to practice balance as part of contortion. It's really important. There's Marisa, when her shoulder's better, does a lot of handstands and hand balancing and making different shapes with her body, but I'm going to stay on my feet at the moment. And the first thing I'm going to do, if you've ever done yoga, there's something called a tree pose, and it looks like this. You put one foot up against your other leg and put your arms up in a V, so you look kind of like a tree. And that's the first thing we're going to try. Be careful that you don't fall over, but if you do, just try to catch yourself. And try the other leg, right? We're going to make that tree. See if you can balance. And breathe. Always remember to breathe. Sometimes when people are trying to do something hard, they hold their breath, and that just makes it harder. So I always remind my students to breathe. It makes everything easier. So if you can do that tree pose, that's awesome. And you can practice that. If you want to practice something a little more complicated, I'm going to show you something called a Y scale. So it starts like your tree pose, except your foot doesn't touch the other leg. We're trying to bring the knee up to the outside of your body here. My arms go up in that tree pose with the arms. I'm going to take one arm and bring it to my foot if I can reach my foot or my leg. And then I'm going to lift that leg up in the air as high as it goes. Yours may not go as high as mine.
I show mine if you want.
And then that's called a bow and arrow. And sometimes I do that up high on a platform or on balancing canes, but it works the same. I like to do it on both legs to balance my body out. So it comes up. You might go to a Y shape, or you might be able to get it up over your head if you're super flexible. And that's our bow and arrow pose.
And you might just be able to get it to a T shape, which is okay.
A T shape is awesome. A T shape like that, where your body goes into a T. The next level is the Y. The next level is that bow and arrow. So yeah, that's one of my favorite contortion poses is the bow and arrow, but there's all kinds of levels. This is the last one. Sometimes I tilt it over to the side to make it an over split. But starting out at a tree pose or at a T is where you start. And then with lots of practice, you might be able to get higher.
And just like juggling, Marci practices her contortion, well, not, or stretching to some degree, pretty much every day.
Yeah.
So just like juggling, the more you do it, the better you will get, the more flexible you get, the better juggler you will be.
Absolutely. All right. So any questions about contortion? Because there's so many different parts of contortion. There's front bending, there's back bending, there's splits and straddles, and so many different things. We can also do some of that with a partner. So Marisa, do you feel up for it?
Yeah, are we doing a table?
Yeah. So before we do anything else, when we do partner work, we want to check in with each other with the simplest thing, just to tune in and make sure we're paying attention. And I always ask, can I touch your shoulders? I want to let her know where I'm going to touch her in a table position. And can I put my knees on your hips?
So specifically today, I have to tell her, yes, you can touch my hips, you can put your knees on my hips, and you can touch my left shoulder, but if you want to touch my right shoulder, you're going to have to reach closer to my spine, which is usually not what we would tell you.
But not on her spine.
Not
we
on
never
my
put
spine.
weight on somebody's spine. So just a little closer. So it's good to know. That's why you always check in with the person you're working with. So Marisa is going to go down to a 3-legged table.
If you have all 4 limbs, please put all 4 limbs on the ground. If you have only 3, that's fine too. I'm making it work.
Yeah. So this is her table position, and she has her hips right over her knees. She's a little space between her knees. I don't think you can see that, but a little bit of space between her knees so that her knees are right under her hips. And then she's got her shoulders right over top of her hands and straight arms. Well, straight arm. So I'm going to look at her good shoulder here, the one that's not hurt, and put a hand on it. If you have somebody that's okay with you putting 2 hands on their shoulders, go for that. And I'll bring this one in closer for her. Then I'm going to bring my weight forward over my hands and try to bring one knee onto one of her hips, not her spine, and the other knee up. And then we both look up, right? And that's our stacked table. And then I have to very, very carefully step down without stepping on her feet. And I like to think of my body as moving almost like jello or something like mud. They just very slowly and not forcefully at all. And that way I don't hurt my base. And the person who's carrying the other person's weight is the base, and I'm the flyer.
As a base, it's really, really important that I keep my back super duper straight when I have a flyer on top of me. So I don't know if you noticed, but when I was in my table position, even when she put her weight on me, I did not let my back sag and I didn't let my belly button go towards the ground. I also didn't overcompensate, and I didn't try to push Marci off of me by making my back really tall like a scaredy cat. I kept it really flat the whole time, so she had a solid surface that she could balance on, and also that helped keep my body safe.
So if you have somebody to try that with, you can, and if not, you can also just try the table position. It's a good thing to practice. And if you're by yourself, you can definitely do what Marisa was just talking about. The cat-cow position feels really good on a lot of people's backs to go back and forth.
Just not with someone else on you.
Yeah, not when there's anyone on top of you, but when you're by yourself, going up to a scaredy cat, you know, when cats get scared and they hiss, you can make that sound if you want. And then if a cow hasn't been milked all day and their udder gets really heavy and pulls them down. So you can go back and forth when you're by yourself or nobody's on top of your back. Feels great for your back, and it's a nice warm up for the other things that we do. Do we have a question, Jan?
Yeah, so Lydia and Andrea wants to know if you've ever done any contortions on a rope.
On a rope?
We are not very well versed in rope specifically, but on fabric, which is similar, kind of looks like two ropes, but they look more like scarves from the air. We've both done contortion. We do splits and back bends up there in the air.
Yep. And we've practiced a little bit on rope as well doing that, but that's not something we've performed.
But there is an apparatus that is just a rope.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same as a gym class rope. It looks fairly similar.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they've done that.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people more and more people are practicing aerials. So if anybody out there is also an aerialist, please let us know in the chat. We
or have done circus elsewhere.
Yeah.
All, not just aerials, but acrobatics or juggling.
So any other questions? No? All right.
Nope.
Well, we are so excited. I want to show folks, we both love to read and we love books. And our friend from Circus named Jackie wrote this book that gives you ideas for making your own circus equipment
and practicing pretty safely at home.
Yeah, so not aerials like rope or anything like that, but the kinds of things we're doing today and then some other things. And I just wanted to show you this one. It's called DIY Circus Lab for Kids. And yeah, so there's lots of circus books. This is just one of the many circus books that we have. Some of them are stories. And we love to read circus books. So if you know any circus books too, and you want to let us know what they are, we would love to hear that. We also like movies with circus in them, and plays. And one of my students was in Pippin, which is a musical. She traveled all around the country doing something called German wheel. It's a very large gym wheel, and her whole body fits inside of it, and she controls that wheel. So she was able to travel all around the country doing musical theater and circus, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm going to show one other thing. Oh, another question?
So Laura wanted to note that another really good circus book is called Extraordinary Jane.
Oh, I don't know that circus book.
We're going to have to check that out at our library, see if our library has that. Extraordinary Jane. We will definitely, thank you for that recommendation, because we need some new reading to do.
So we're going to show you one more partner acrobatic move. It's called thrown, and it's one of the only things I can do right now with my arm in this sling, but I'm so excited. This is actually the first time we've tried it right before logging on with you guys since I had my surgery. So I'm really excited that we get to show this to you guys.
All right, should we try it?
Yes.
So Marisa lies down on her back. And yeah, I'm gonna step my feet right outside of her hips. And we were practicing this. She knows it's okay to put her feet right behind my hips here. And I'm gonna hold on to her feet. She's gonna tell me, because we have to communicate a lot in circus. We have to communicate very clearly. She'll say, ready, hop. And that means I need to jump. That means the trick is gonna start.
And because she actually has to do something for the trick to start, it's really important that I say it loud and clear. So, ready? Hop!
Okay.
I don't know
Ta-da!
if they can see the top of your head. Okay, they can.
And then I can probably go to one foot. Ta-da! And then back to 2 feet.
And then to the ground before the dog attacks.
And Marisa's going to say down, or I'll say down. That's part of our communication, is that when one of us wants to get down for any reason, all we have to say is down, and we don't ask any questions. We're just, okay, it's time to get down as safely and as quickly as possible, kind of like a fire drill. You just do it as safely and quickly as possible.
And I just want to say that thrown is a slightly more advanced move, so we wanted to show you guys that, but it's maybe not something that's as safe as the stacked tables to try at home.
And we wanted to show you something cool. Okay, I have one more balancing thing if we have time for that, which is we sometimes use these kind of cool peacock feathers to teach how to balance objects, especially when we're indoors and it's not windy, because they don't fall down very quickly. But you don't have to have a fancy peacock feather to do this. So I'll show you. I put my hand out like I'm feeding a horse or a goat, nice and flat. And I put the pointy part of the feather right on my hand. And then I watch towards the top of the feather. That's a pretty eye on that feather. So I use my eye to watch that eye. That's my early warning system. That's going to tell me which way the feather is about to fall. And what I do is my hand under the eye,
Which looks like.
so I can follow it around. If it's moving away from me, I just move my hand back under the eye. I can maybe pop it and rebalance it. And you can balance this on your finger, on your elbow, as long as you keep where it's attached to your body right under the eye. But if you don't have a feather, then you can use
I have two
objects.
I have two found objects that we had in our house. So I have a gingerbread man spatula. It's rubber, not metal. So if it falls, it's not going to hurt anybody. So I can balance that, just like Marci was balancing the feather.
An empty paper towel tube works just as well, or even a toilet paper tube that's empty. Once you've used up all the toilet paper or the paper towels, you can use that cardboard tube and practice your balancing.
I also have a Christmas decoration candy cane that I can balance if I don't hit the ceiling fan.
So you saw how Marisa, I think you saw how she opened up her fingers, because it's not about holding that, it's about balance. And what's really cool about this, if you study physics, you can study lots of different physics subjects with circus, including why it won't fall if you keep your hand right underneath its center.
And like Marci was saying, the better you get at balancing objects, so any of those objects we just showed you, or anything that you have that you think will be safe and not breakable, that's the big thing, nothing breakable. You can balance those all over your body. My favorite balance is my chin.
Whoa.
That's my favorite. I think it's just so fun.
And I always like to tell the story of my student who practiced the feathers and then practiced bigger things and finally got good enough to balance her cello. That's not a thing you do in the beginning at all, and you have to have permission, but she had a cello, a great big violin kind of instrument.
A cello, a real musical cello.
She was a cellist. And she practiced so much that she got really good at balancing objects on her face.
So she could balance her cello on her chin. And then her mom broke her cello, not because they were balancing, but she put it into the cello case wrong. So then she was never able to balance her cello again.
So it's a sad story, but it's kind of funny too, because everybody thought her cello broke because she had been balancing it on her chin, and that's not why it broke. She never dropped her cello. So, all right, we have a couple more things we can show. No, are we
We're
almost
out of time, I think.
Oh my goodness. Well, we need to teach you how to bow like a circus artist. It goes like this. We say hop, then you clap, and then we all put our hands up in the air like that V and say, hey. So if you can do that with us.
I'm going to say ready, and then you're all going to yell hop, throw your hands up, and once your hands are up, you say hey. So ready, hop, up, hey. And that is the way we bow in the circus.
You can also do your personal bow, which can be any kind of bow at all. That's our group bow, but everybody gets their time in the spotlight. So go ahead and take your personal bow. And we're going to say the thing we always say in circus when we leave, which is see you down the road. We don't say goodbye because our paths may cross again somewhere, sometime, and we sure hope for that.
So see you down the road.
See you down the road.
Thank you for joining us today.
All right, ladies, thank you very, very much. That was a wonderful program, and I hope we get to see you again back in the gym. So boys and girls, moms and dads, students and parents, I want to remind you that we've got a great program coming up on Monday with the Royal Botanical Gardens, and we're going to take a look at pumpkins and plant parts. So I will see you then, everybody. Bye-bye.
See you down the road.
See you down the road.